welcome to my channel. My name is Nikki the Great. I am so glad you chose to join us today. I am looking forward to this thought of the day. If you haven't already, please subscribe and go ahead and hit that notification bell so you can be made aware of any new material that we have come up with. We're gonna go on ahead and jump right into the thought of the day, and that is going to be entitled The Coffee Tree. And several years ago, I had spent most of the year living in Hawaii, and I am an avid coffee drinker. I need to quit. I probably should quit, but it's not gonna happen anytime soon. But I never really thought about where coffee came from. I guess in my mind, I was thinking it was like a short bush and it was some leaves that people picked and dried and grounded and boiled, and that's where we got coffee from. Pardon my ignorance. So a friend of mine had invited me to tour a coffee plantation, and I must say it was very educational for me, and it definitely brightened up my horizon and it also increased the respect that I have for coffee farmers. This coffee farm had like a visitor center, and at the visitor center there were these little cherry looking fruit that were like kind of decorated around about the visitor center, and I thought it was some type of fruit. You know, I've never lived in Hawaii before, so a lot of things are different. A lot of the fruits are different, trees are different, everything's really different, and so I really didn't pay any attention to it. They also had a coffee station where you can taste different coffees, the coffees that were actually grown there. But we're not going to discuss the visitor center and what they were doing out there. We're going to discuss the actual coffee tree. And yes, it's more like a tree instead of a bush. And the gentleman that was giving us a tour of the plantation, he was telling us that it takes the actual coffee tree. It comes in, you know, as a small little plant, and it grows into a tree. And it takes a few years for it to actually mature and begin to produce. They're more like a. It looks like a fruit, but it's actually like a little cherry, and it's not a leaf that coffee comes from. So any of you out there that think like me, coffee comes from a bean, not a leaf. Anyways, so we were able to see the different stages of the actual coffee tree in different areas of the plantation. So some areas had the little small, well, some greenhouses had the little coffee plants that they would nurture and baby, and then out where the actual, like a vineyard was actual, there were trees, and they were grown meticulously, kind of like in rows. And we were able to see how big they were. The thing that I noticed the most was there was the juvenile coffee tree. It had a net over it, and it had wires attached to the actual base of the small little juvenile tree and along its trunk. And the wires would be fastened to the ground by some type of pins. I noticed that other trees would have bricks or some type of rocks kind of keeping them up so they would grow uprightly. And when I saw that, I didn't know why the coffee farmer had the nets over the trees, or why he had rocks or bricks or wires attached to them. And so when I had asked the question as to why these things were there, he said the net is to protect them from the birds and from other things that could eat the young coffee tree. And he said when the wind blows, or when something knocks by the young juvenile tree, it will fall down. So he purposely put stakes and wires around the trunk of it to keep it in an upright position. and the rocks also would keep it so it would grow up. So when I was able to see the actual mature coffee plant, after years of maturation, it was strong, it was thick, it was beautiful, and it was producing those little round fruit. What I'm going to associate that with today is us as Christians, us as babies in the flock, babies, if you will. We are the same way. We don't just shoot out our mother's womb, or when we take a different route, and when we dedicate our hearts to God as a child or as an adult, we don't, as soon as we make that official initial commitment to Christ, we're not just automatically strong. We can't defend ourselves, so to speak, spiritually. And so God is as our farmer, as our tender, as our keeper. He protects us from the birds, from the other creatures that might try to eat us, or he puts wires around about us so we grow uprightly. And his goal for us is to produce fruit. His goal for us is to be strong and to continue to grow in him and to trust in him. If it wasn't for the coffee farmer tending to his young coffee plants and the juvenile trees and assisting them in their maturation process to produce fruit, you and I and the rest of the coffee drinkers in the world wouldn't be able to experience the delicacies of some exotic coffees, and they can get pretty expensive. But that's not what we're talking about. So what I want to encourage you with today is to be aware that we are never going to hit full maturation to where we're not going to need the farmer anymore. We're always going to need God's grooming, and understand that when times get tough, and times do get tough, they are always going to get tough, to know that our maker is around us, to know our keeper, our farmer is around us. And at times he puts barriers around us, not to keep us away from people, but to keep people away from us, because he knows we're not strong enough yet. And we notice those boundaries. It's important to be spiritually aware and spiritually minded, to know that when God shuts doors, when he closes windows, those are the stakes in the ground. Those are the rocks that are keeping us upright. Let's respect those boundaries and say, you know what, Lord, thank you so much for closing that door. Thank you so much for closing that window, because you are protecting me around about. And that is something that I am also learning, and we are growing. I appreciate so much for you joining us. That's a quick message. I appreciate you joining us today. Again, hit that notification bell and please subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or even topics that you would like for us to discuss, please don't hesitate to put them in the comment box below, and we will look into that. Thank you so much. Bye.